Okay, let's jump right in. We're doing a deep dive today into something truly fascinating. Building cities, actual engineered systems smaller than your cells.
That's right. We're talking about the nanocosm.
And this is based on the source material you, our listener, shared. So our ambition here is to unpack what this nanocosm really is, how we're starting to engineer things at that scale.
And even planning, you could say, cities on a molecular level, it sounds like science fiction, but the groundwork is being laid.
It really does. We're talking nanobots as citizens, DNA as like the scaffolding. It's this idea of a powerful, invisible civilization reshaping biology. It's mind-bending stuff.
Well, let's start with the basics. What is the nanocosm? Scale is key here.
Right.
We're talking about the realm between, say, 1 and 100 nanometers.
Which is hard to grasp. How small is that, really?
It's tiny, way smaller than bacteria, smaller than most viruses even. Think about a human hair. You'd need hundreds, maybe thousands of nanometer-sized things stacked up to match its width.
Wow. Okay. And the sources say physics gets weird down there.
Oh, absolutely. The whole different ballgame. Gravity, the force we feel constantly, almost irrelevant at that scale.
So what takes over?
Quantum effects become really noticeable. Particles act less like solid balls and more probabilistic. And things like surface tension. Hugely important.
Like a water strider walking on a pond.
Exactly that principle,
Right.
but acting on molecular machines. And the lines we normally draw between physics, chemistry, biology, they just get completely blurred. It's all interconnected.
This sounds a lot like what Eric Drexler was writing about way back in the 80s. Engines of creation, right?
That's the foundational text, yeah. He proposed these molecular assemblers, machines that can build atom by atom.
Which was super controversial at the time.
Hugely controversial, but the source material points out how current science is, well, catching up in a way. Things like DNA origami.
That's Paul Rothman's work from the mid-2000s.
Right. Using DNA's self-assembling properties to build shapes in simple machines. And nanoscale 3D printing, programmable materials. We're getting much better at controlling matter precisely at that level. Drexler's vision isn't quite reality, but the tools are getting there.
Okay, so if we're building systems, what does a nanocosm city actually look like, according to the sources? Not skyscrapers, I assume.
Definitely not skyscrapers. Think more functional components. You might have nanopores, tiny holes in membranes acting like controlled doorways.
Letting specific things in or out.
Exactly. Carbon nanotubes, which are incredibly strong for their size, could be structural elements like beams. You could have sensors embedded in membranes, maybe for traffic control.
Traffic control for what?
For the citizens, the nanobots are molecular machines doing the work, and they need power. The sources mentioned using ATP.
The same energy molecule our own cells use.
Precisely, capping to the local biological fuel source.
And this isn't just a metaphor, the sources stress that. It's about actual physical construction.
Yes, the key is precision fabrication, building reliably and accurately at the nanoscale.
And DNA seems central to that now.
It's a huge part of it. DNA nanostructures are a major breakthrough highlighted in the sources, because DNA-based pairs A with T, C with G match up so predictably.
Like tiny Lego bricks that know where to connect.
Kind of, yeah. So researchers can design DNA strands that will literally fold themselves into predetermined shapes when you put them in the right solution. We're talking complex geometric forms, sure, but also things like logic gates.
Like in a computer chip, but made of DNA.
Exactly. Performing simple computations. And even things like tiny robotic arms, picking up and moving other nanoparticles. There was that work by Douglas and others around 2012 showing this. These aren't just, research curiosities anymore. They're becoming functional.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The source details a specific study, I think it was Leak et al. 2020, about nanobots targeting cancer.
Ah, yes. That's a fantastic example of function. These nanobots were designed essentially as tiny containers.
Carrying drugs.
Carrying a drug payload, yes. But the clever part was the release mechanism. They were programmed to only open and release the drug when they detected the specific molecular signals found around a tumor.
So a very simple logic. If cancer environment detected, then release payload.
That's it, a molecular key that only fits the lock on the cancer cell. Simple logic, but incredibly powerful in its specificity.
And now you start to think, okay, scale that up, not necessarily making the bots bigger, but making the system more complex, more interactions, more sophisticated tasks.
Right. What else could these systems do?
Yeah.
The sources talk about potential districts within a nanosity.
Districts? Like what?
Well, maybe you have nanofactories churning out specific biomolecules as needed, Or nanogrids distributing energy, maybe molecular fuel to different parts of the system.
Or maybe nanofilters cleaning up toxins in the bloodstream, for example.
Exactly. Specialized zones for different tasks. You put these together, maybe all operating inside a single cell or a targeted area of tissue.
And you've essentially built a tiny functional ecosystem, a city, but molecular.
Cities without people, perhaps, but the sources hint they might possess a kind of intelligence.
How so? If we're designing these, how do you organize them? How do you make sure they work together?
That's the next big challenge, the urban planning of the nanocosm. Just like our cities need infrastructure.
Energy, communication, waste disposal.
Nanosystems need the same, just scaled down. Energy could be harvested from light or chemical gradients or ATP, like we mentioned. Communication might use specific signaling molecules.
Sending messages back and forth chemically.
Right? Or maybe even using more exotic things like quantum states, though that's more speculative. And waste. You'd need ways to break down byproducts, maybe using enzymes for recycling.
And researchers are actually thinking in these terms. The sources mention work at places like MIT, Caltech, applying urban planning ideas.
Yes, explicitly.
Yeah.
Thinking about optimizing routes for nanobots moving through, say, the bloodstream. How do you avoid traffic jams? How do you avoid setting off the immune system? It's a logistics problem.
That's amazing. Like designing a subway system for molecules.
And it gets even more interesting with the idea of emergent behavior.
What's that?
It means designing the individual units, the nanobots, with simple rules, but in such a way that complex, organized behavior emerges for the whole group without a central controller telling everyone what to do.
Ah, like how an ant colony works. Or a flock of birds.
Exactly like that. Simple local interactions leading to complex global patterns. Some nano devices are being designed with this potential in mind. Self-organization.
Which leads to, well, the sources called it a wild idea, that the first real AI.
Might not boot up in a silicon supercomputer.
But might emerge from one of these self-organizing nanonetworks, a sort of hive intelligence arising from the matter itself.
It's a mind-bending possibility, but it flows logically from these concepts of complexity and emergence at the nanoscale.
So where is all this heading? What are the big applications on the horizon, according to the sources?
Well, medicine is a huge one. We already mentioned nanobots in clinical trials for drug delivery, but the potential future. Repairing tissues molecule by molecule.
Which could mean things like regenerating damaged organs, or even tackling aging.
That's the long-term vision described.
Right.
Really fundamental biological repair.
Wow. What about outside medicine?
Material science is another big area. Imagine nanomachines building materials from the ground up, creating structures with entirely new properties. Living buildings, the source calls them.
Living buildings.
Surfaces that could maybe heal themselves if damaged, adapt to the weather, or even transmit information.
And space. That seems like a natural fit, too.
Definitely. Sending out swarms of nanobots to, say, terraform a planet. Or maybe build spacecraft directly from asteroid dust, molecule by molecule. Huge potential, but also huge challenges.
Yeah, the power here is immense. Which brings up the tough questions. Who actually controls this? Who designs the architecture of the nanocosm?
That's the critical ethical frontier the sources raise. Governance at the nanoscale.
Yeah.
How do you regulate something so small, so potentially powerful?
Especially the risks. Weaponized nanotech, how would you even defend against that?
It's a serious concern. And what about accidents? A rogue nanosystem that starts replicating uncontrollably.
Is that the gray goo scenario?
That's the term, yeah, popularized by Bill Joy years ago. The idea of self-replicating nanobots consuming everything to make copies. Now, the sources are clear. That specific scenario is seen as highly unlikely with foreseeable tech.
Okay, that's somewhat reassuring.
But the underlying worry, losing control of powerful self-replicating systems, that's a very real issue discussed in the material we looked at. It highlights the need for careful design and robust safeguards.
It sounds like we need, as the source puts it, constitutions for the nanocosm. Rules, ethics, safety protocols built in from the start.
Absolutely, because this isn't sci-fi anymore. The nanocosm is real, and we're learning to build within it faster and faster.
So wrapping up, we're talking about engineering on a scale that's almost philosophical, building cities smaller than cells.
It's more than just new tech. It's potentially terraforming biology, changing how we think about intelligence, maybe rebuilding our world from the atom up.
It makes you think. The next great leap, the next metropolis, might not be out there in space.
It could be buzzing away right now, unseen, inside a single drop of your blood.
Makes you want to look closer, doesn't it? See how the future is building itself one molecule at a time.